I want to talk to you about a new way of looking at the mind. What I call the extended mind is the idea that the technology we use becomes part of our minds, extending our minds and indeed ourselves into the world. The iPhone, it's basically started taking over a whole bunch of the functions of my brain. Things my brain used to do are now done by my iPhone. I mean, there's a million examples. Take memory. I mean, how many people use their brain to remember phone numbers anymore? Not me. You know, my iPhone does all the work. It used to be the biological memory used to carry the load. Now the iPhone is carrying the load for me, acting as my memory. The iPhone serves to control planning functions that my brain used to do. Spatial navigation, you know, offloaded from my brain into Google Maps. The iPhone is literally becoming part of your mind. Your mind is extending from your brain into the world, so the iPhone is actually part of it. I mean, the iPhone hasn't been implanted into your mind, but you might think it's as if you ask most people, where is your mind? They'll point and say, well, it's somewhere in there. This extended mind thesis, I think, can sort of transform our vision of the mind by saying, okay, well, the mind is not just in the brain, it's partly in the world around us, in the environment that we interact with. A blind person who starts using his iPhone as a vision tool. This is the color identification program, Color ID. You can download it. It basically reads out colors. You point it to something, it reads it out. And that wearable computing becomes more and more ubiquitous in our lives. This is just going, I think, to become more and more common. Here we've got glasses that compute stuff for us through extended perception. So when I was preparing this talk about a month ago, I posted out sent a note out to Facebook. I've got to give a TED talk, 50-minute TED talk in Sydney next month on the extended mind. Any ideas on how to approach it? And I got a whole lot of responses, some pretty useful responses from this social network, which is kind of surrounding us, becoming part of our extended mind. There were more, and there were more, and there were more. We often talk about the greatest tragedy being that people lose their memories. You know, their houses and their possessions and so on, or basically have become part of them. The loss of them really feels like loss of oneself. And as more of one's mind gets extended, the more there is vulnerability. I mean, just say somebody steals my iPhone. You might think that's a pretty serious, that's a form of theft, you know, and they should be punished for this. But if I'm right, that should actually be reconceived as a really vicious form of assault. Like, you know, getting into my brain and, you know, messing with my neurons. And that really does kind of capture the attitude I have to my iPhone. But I think we have to remember, we still always have consciousness at the middle of this and judgment. And the extension of our minds doesn't abnegate us from using our judgment. With better and better technology, which becomes more and more flexible, I think there's the hope that the interplay of judgment and technology might move us forward in interesting ways. So I actually think then, to conclude, this extended mind thesis offers us some hope of an optimistic worldview. People say, is Google making us stupid? This is a debate which has been out there in the media. Well, if I'm right about the extended mind thesis, there's a sense in which Google is actually making us smarter. Google is getting inside our minds. And I don't know about you, but I heard someone say recently, when I sit down at Google, I feel like my IQ goes up 30 points. You know, it's like all that knowledge, and they say, you know, knowledge is power. The question is, will we use these powers for good or for evil? I think that's the gift of the extended mind and the challenge it presents as we move into our extended future. Thank you very much.